This is how you start building some really delicious flavor. This smells amazing with that melted butter and the onions.
Well, when we first got married, it was pretty much anything helper, like tuna helper, hamburger helper.
Yeah, our sauce has thickened up perfectly. In today's video, I'm gonna share with you two delicious Italian dishes, a chicken marsala and a caprese chicken. And because both of these dishes are Italian, they're definitely Rocco approved. Hi, it's Steph and Rocco, who is our 7-year-old Italian Greyhound. He is my sous chef, and anytime that I do a Hooked and Rooted at Home where we're doing some cooking, you are sure to see Rocco pop his little head up above the counter. And on this episode of Hooked and Rooted at Home, I have two delicious recipes to share with you that are easy, come together in under 30 minutes, and if you're having company, they're pretty impressive. We're gonna do the chicken marsala first, and then later I'm gonna show you how to make caprese chicken. To get started, I want to get my sides going because the chicken comes together so quickly. I'm gonna start on my mashed potatoes as well as some green beans that I'm gonna serve with the chicken marsala. So the first thing I'm gonna do is peel and chop some of these yellow potatoes. I'm gonna go ahead and wash these and get them cubed up and into some water to get boiling. I find that yellow potatoes make a really creamy mashed potato. All right, I've gotten all of my potatoes cubed and chopped up, and I'm gonna use a medium heat, and I'm gonna also season up the water while they cook. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of salt, black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and a little paprika. And mashed potatoes, if you cube the potatoes nice and small, they take about 25 minutes until they're fork tender. I'm also gonna cook some green beans. Now this is a really easy way to make frozen green beans. You're just gonna get a casserole dish. This one here is just a 9x9. It's a 2-quart size. And I'm gonna spray it with some olive oil. And you're gonna get a bag of frozen green beans. Now these are just as easy to go ahead and steam in the microwave, but I feel like they come out so much better in the oven. So you're just gonna take your bag of frozen green beans, and these are the fine green beans. And I'm gonna dump them into my dish. Spray them with a little more olive oil. And I'm gonna season them with just really simple seasonings. So some salt, some black pepper, and some garlic powder. And one more thing that really takes it over the edge is a little bit of grated Parmesan cheese. So most people have one of these in their refrigerator, and that's what I'm using. Just gonna go ahead and give these a toss. And we're gonna pop them into the oven. I have it at 375, and I'm gonna cook the green beans for about 30 minutes. And at the same time, we have our potatoes for the mashed potatoes going. Here are the ingredients that you need for chicken marsala. You will need some marsala wine. Now this is really inexpensive. You can get it at any liquor store between $8 and $10 per bottle. And this bottle will last me making this recipe about 5 times. You're gonna need some chicken. Now you can use boneless, skinless chicken thighs, but in this case, I'm going to use some thin chicken breast cutlets. I have about 1.5 pounds here. You're gonna need some flour so that you can dredge your chicken. You're also going to need some butter and some olive oil to cook your chicken. And for seasonings, we're gonna use some salt, some black pepper, some Italian seasoning, and some garlic powder. So really basic ingredients. You're also going to need some mushrooms. I just have here some baby Bella sliced mushrooms and a small onion. So the first thing I'm gonna do is season my chicken. So I have already cut out and trimmed all of the little fatty pieces. So it's all cleaned up and ready to go. And the first thing I'm gonna do is season it. So I'm going to use some salt. This is just some pink sea salt. some ground black pepper, some Italian seasoning, some garlic powder. Now at this point, we are ready to start the oil and butter going on the pan, and we're gonna dredge our chicken in some flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some flour into my dish. And you only need a little bit because it's just enough to coat your chicken on both sides, which is going to let it get a nice thin crust on it when we go ahead and sear it. So if I had to guess, it's about a 1/4 cup or so of flour, maybe a 1/2 cup, depending on how much chicken you have and how thick it is. Now, before I even dunk the chicken into the flour, I'm gonna go ahead and cut out 2 tablespoons of butter that I'm gonna dredge in the flour. And this is going to be what we use once we're trying to thicken the sauce. We're gonna throw these pieces of butter into the saucepan with the flour on them. So I'm gonna go ahead and dredge my butter in the flour. And so we have 2 tablespoons of butter that's been dredged in flour. And we're gonna set that aside. And now I'm also going to add butter to my pan, another about 3 tablespoons or so. Just start melting that while I dredge my chicken in the flour. So we'll let the butter melt and start getting a little brown, and then we're gonna also add a drizzle of olive oil. And you're just gonna lightly flour your chicken. Now that the butter is mostly melted, I'm gonna go ahead and drizzle in some olive oil. This is extra virgin olive oil. Just a generous drizzle. You wanna have enough butter and olive oil in your pan so that when you're cooking your chicken, it's going to brown it nicely. Now, when you put your chicken in your pan, you wanna make sure that the butter is all melted, that the oil is nice and hot, and you don't wanna crowd your chicken. You wanna leave a little bit of space between each one because you want your chicken to brown, you don't want it to steam. You might have to cook them in batches. So just like this. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. You don't have to cook the chicken all the way through because we are going to finish cooking it in the sauce. We're getting so much snow this weekend, and anytime there's a snowstorm, it puts me in the mood to cook because there's not much else we could do, right? Cooking and cleaning, and I rather cook. So now that my chicken has been cooking for about 3 minutes, you can see it has this nice golden color. It is time to flip it and let it cook for another couple of minutes on the other side. It's been a couple more minutes, so now I'm gonna transfer this chicken onto this dish that I have here, this casserole, just to let it rest while I make the other batch of chicken. Now at this point, that chicken that we already cooked has soaked up a lot of the butter and the oil that were in the pan. So I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit more butter and a little bit more olive oil so that we can finish cooking our next batch of chicken. All right, now that our chicken is done, I'm going to start working on the sauce. So the first thing that you need to do is chop up your onion. Now I like to do a nice thin sliced onion, so that's what I'm gonna do. And then we're gonna saute the onion in the pan and start building our flavor. And anytime that you add a component to your saucepan, you should season it. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of salt and black pepper to my onions while they start to soften. And you want them to get nice and fragrant and translucent. You wanna scrape up all those delicious bits at the bottom of the pan. It's gonna add a lot of flavor. Now that my onions have cooked down quite a bit, I'm gonna go ahead and add my mushrooms. Now these are just a small package of sliced mushrooms. I only use about half the package because my family does not love mushrooms. So you could omit them if you want to, but I do think that it gives the sauce a delicious flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and add those. And I leave them big so that they can pick them out if they want to. I personally love mushrooms, so I will take all of them. They can pile them onto my plate. And now that I've added another component, again, I'm just gonna go ahead and add a tiny bit of salt and black pepper. And we're gonna let those cook down a little bit as well before we start adding our liquid. It smells delicious in here. I wish you could smell it. George, what do you think of the chicken marsala?
It's really good.
Yeah, it's come a long way since the days when we were first married, right? What were one of your favorite things that I used to make for dinner?
When we first got married, it was pretty much anything helper, like tuna helper, hamburger helper, anything helper, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now you're creating these
from scratch. But that comes with time and experience, right? I pretty much learned just from being on my own and learn from doing. And I cook a lot. Out of 7 days of the week, I probably cook 6 nights. And then one night we either do a leftover night or we might get takeout. But yeah, I do a lot of cooking and that's how you learn, right? Now that our mushrooms and our onions are cooked down, we're gonna start adding our liquid. So you need marsala wine, which is a key component in chicken marsala. And for this, we're gonna add a half a cup of marsala wine. Everything else, I kind of eyeball the seasonings and whatnot, but I do measure the wine and the chalk. So we're gonna let this cook down for about 3 minutes or so. You're gonna let the alcohol evaporate and the flavor is gonna really concentrate, and this is going to start to thicken. The timer just went off on my potatoes, so I'm gonna go ahead and shut off the flame, and we're gonna drain those in a second. But first, I'm gonna get my stock into my pan so we can keep building our sauce. Now, you would think chicken marsala, you're gonna use chicken stock, but I actually use beef stock because I feel like it gives it a deeper flavor. It's a more robust flavor, so that's what we're gonna use. And I'm gonna add 1 cup of beef stock or beef broth. And at this point, I'm also going to add those 2 tablespoons of butter that we used some flour to flour them, and that's going to help thicken the sauce. So we're gonna let this simmer at about a low heat, low to medium. And in about 2 minutes or so, once this starts to bubble and the butter has melted, I'm gonna add my chicken back in to finish cooking. While the sauce is going, I'm gonna go ahead and start my mashed potatoes. Super easy to make mashed potatoes from scratch, and they're just so flavorful. And so I'm gonna go ahead and drain them out, and I'll show you what I add. Now, normally people take the strainer, they put it in the sink and they pour the potatoes over that, right? They'll pour the pan, pasta, potatoes, whichever. But I actually sit the strainer right on top of my pot because it happens to fit perfectly. And then I just flip it over. And that way I can keep my potatoes right where they are. Okay, let me get my potato masher. And you're just gonna go ahead and mash your potatoes. And we're gonna add the rest of that stick of butter. There's about 2 tablespoons here. Now, all in all, between the chicken marsala and the mashed potatoes, I used a stick of salted butter. I said this dish was delicious. I didn't say it was healthy. So in goes the butter. We're also going to add a splash of milk. You can use whole milk, you can use heavy cream. And now I'm gonna get a spoon to stir that all up. I'm gonna use a spatula. Now, the other thing that I like to add to my mashed potatoes is a little bit of sour cream. Now, this is a light sour cream, and I just add about a tablespoon. And then we're gonna season it. Now, if you find that you ever add too much liquid to your mashed potatoes, it's a really easy fix. All you have to do is, if you have some instant mashed potatoes on hand, throw in a couple of flakes and it'll fix it right up. Some salt, some garlic powder, some black pepper. We have some creamy mashed potatoes. And we're gonna let that sit for a little bit while we finish up our chicken.
There's no heat on it?
No, there's no heat. I've shut off the heat on the potatoes. So you can see now that our butter has melted in the sauce, and we're gonna go ahead and add back our chicken. We're gonna nestle it right in there in the sauce. And we're gonna cook this for about 5 minutes. And the sauce will continue to thicken and be really delicious.
So you don't have to give the chicken space anymore?
No, you don't have to give the chicken space anymore. You can put them all in the bathtub nice and close. Because at this point, we've already browned the chicken. It's only important when you're browning chicken because if they're too crowded, the steam doesn't allow them to get that nice golden color. And any kind of juices that you have from the chicken, you can go ahead and add to the pan as well. While our chicken wraps up, Rocco is sitting on his carpet, waiting to see if anything drops on the floor so you can come in and swoop it up. You waiting for treats? It's been about 7 minutes and our sauce has thickened up perfectly. So I'm gonna go ahead and plate up our dinner and add a little bit of mashed potatoes. And I'm gonna sit the chicken right on top because these juices make a really delicious gravy. Are you begging? And check out our green beans. They come out so great in the oven. See that? Nice and soft, but a little al dente. And it makes the perfect side for our chicken marsala. And there it is. Some mashed potatoes, some chicken marsala, and some green beans. And before we get to the next recipe, we're gonna take a quick moment to share about today's video sponsor, City Beauty. If you're like me and you're a sucker for lashes that look long and full, check out the Beyond Mascara. This isn't just mascara, it's a lash treatment infused with keratin and biotin, which really help your lashes grow longer and stronger. I'm pretty fair and light-haired, so a few makeup basics help me look more awake and feel put together. Mascara is one of those items. The other is lip color. And we all know lipstick is unforgiving to apply when our lips are dry and chapped. For my dry winter lips, I've been using the City Beauty Lip Oil. It's a luxurious overnight treatment that delivers deep hydration while you sleep. The soft silicone paddle applicator feels amazing and gives a gentle exfoliation as you apply. The formula includes hyaluronic acid spheres, which help lock in moisture and give a visible plumping effect. In the morning, my lips feel softer and more supple. If you struggle with chapped or thin lips, you're going to want to try this. All of their products are cruelty-free, paraben-free, and formulated with high-performing active ingredients. Try City Beauty for yourself. Use the code HOOKEDANDROOTED to save 20% off your order with the link below. And thank you to City Beauty for sponsoring today's video. Well, it is Italian night number 2, and today we're gonna make caprese chicken. Now, I do have my French apron on, but it's just what was clean. I don't have an Italian apron. So we're gonna go with it. Now, to start your chicken, you need 1.5 to 2 pounds of thin sliced chicken breast. And I will season it with you, but first you need your chicken. You're also going to need fresh mozzarella cheese. So I like to buy the one that's already sliced. It just makes it a lot easier to layer on top of your chicken while cooking. You're also going to need basil. Now, I don't have fresh basil currently because, you know, it's winter and the garden doesn't have any basil. So we're gonna use some dried basil for today, but you could also get some fresh basil at the grocery store if you want to. And you'll need some cherry or grape tomatoes. I have already rinsed mine. These happen to be organic grape tomatoes. Now for the sauce, you're going to need some honey and some balsamic vinegar. And you're also going to need a small onion. And for the cooking oils, I'm going to be using some extra virgin olive oil as well as 3 tablespoons of butter. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to season up my chicken. So I am going to rinse my hands and I'll show you what seasonings go onto the chicken. So the next step is to season the chicken, and I always use the same basic ingredients. So we're gonna start with some salt and black pepper. And my preferred salt while cooking is this coarse pink Himalayan salt or sea salt. And I'm just using some regular black pepper. And then I always use garlic powder as well as onion powder. So first I'm adding the garlic powder and onion powder. And because it is an Italian dish, a little Italian seasoning. Now that I have this side seasoned, I'm gonna go ahead and start my oil. And then once I lay the chicken into the skillet, I'm gonna put it the seasoned side down so that I can season the other side. So I'm gonna start with some extra virgin olive oil, and I'm just gonna drizzle it to cover the bottom of the pan. Now you can see that the olive oil has all kind of spread and evened out, that's when you know it's warm enough to add your butter. And I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 tablespoons now, and I'll save the other tablespoon for when we're sauteing our onion. And you're just gonna let the butter melt. You can hear how it's already sizzling, so the oil is pretty hot. And we can start putting in our chicken. And I'm gonna try to space the chicken out enough so that it doesn't steam. I want it to cook where it'll get a little bit golden. With the same seasonings: salt, black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and Italian seasoning. And it'll probably take about 3 minutes on each side for the chicken to cook because it's pretty thin. So it's been about 3 minutes, and I'm gonna go ahead and flip my chicken. You see it starts getting a little bit golden, and that's exactly what you want. Rocco, you have your chicken? Rocco has his chicken that he got for Christmas. He's already gotten the squeaker out of the face. He's working on the other 2 squeakers. And that's what it looks like. So I'm gonna let this sit for another 2 to 3 minutes, and then I'm gonna remove them and put them on my dish so that I can cook the last 2 pieces. Here's a little tip that I've learned over the years with cooking thin cut chicken. If you start seeing the outsides turn a little bit white, like you see here, then you know it's time to flip it. And you have to be careful with the thinner chicken cutlets because they have a tendency to dry out really fast. So about 2 minutes on each side is really all you need, because at the end, we're gonna put it into the sauce to finish cooking and melt our mozzarella cheese. All right, our chicken is now done. So I'm gonna transfer it over to my dish, and we are gonna start building our sauce. So you see all of this delicious flavor that we have in the pan. You're gonna leave that in there, and we are gonna actually add our onion and start sauteing that, and then we're gonna cook our tomatoes. So the first step is just to chop up a small onion. Now you can dice it or you can slice it. I'm actually just gonna dice it up. I have turned off my heat while I slice my onion, just so that my oil doesn't overheat. Okay. This is when you're gonna add your last tablespoon of butter, and you're gonna let that melt down. And you're gonna add your onions. And you're gonna cook your onions for a couple of minutes until they get nice and translucent and fragrant. And as you do that, you're gonna scrape up all these delicious bits of flavor from the chicken that you cooked, and add that to your onions. This is how you start building some really delicious flavor. Now you also want to remember to season each step. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of salt and black pepper to my onions. All right, and we're going to go ahead and add our tomatoes. And I have already rinsed my grape tomatoes, so I'm going to go ahead and add them to the pan. And now these are going to take a couple of minutes, and they'll start to soften up and pop. Now it's amazing when you can make this dish in the summer with your cherry tomatoes from the garden, but for now we have to rely on the grocery store during the winter. And we're going to let those sit for a couple of minutes and let them break down.
You're not getting any of this. None of this is for you. All right, maybe a bite.
While my tomatoes are cooking down, I'm actually getting my rice started. I do love to serve this on a bed of rice, but it also works really great on some pasta. So all I'm doing is rinsing my rice, and it takes about 15 minutes for it to cook, which will wrap up right about the time that our chicken is finishing up. This is another dish that comes together in about 30 minutes.
How much rice?
For our family, I make about a cup of rice, which yields about 3 cups cooked. And I like to use basmati rice, but white rice, jasmine rice, any kind of rice really will work. What are you waiting for? This smells amazing with that melted butter and the onions. I wish you could smell it. Gotta take our word for it. How does it smell, George?
It smells good.
All right.
Rocco hasn't left your side, so you know
He
it
has
smells
not.
good to him.
Yeah. All right, our tomatoes are just starting to shrivel a little bit, so they're gonna start to pop any minute now. You can kind of tell on the skin there how they start to kind of get a little bit shriveled, and then they'll start popping in the center, and they're gonna continue to cook down. But in the meantime, we are going to add our next couple of components to keep building our sauce. So really easy, all you need is a splash of balsamic vinegar. Now, I have been making this dish for so long that I kind of do it by eye. I loosely base it off of a recipe that I had tried years ago, and I will link that recipe below, so it'll give you some guides on how to cook it, but it's delicious. And you need some honey. Now this will cut the acidity in the dish with a little bit of sweetness. And I just kind of swirl it around like this. My guess is it's about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons. And that is it. And you're gonna stir it around and continue to let your tomatoes cook. You can see how you're getting a nice thick balsamic sauce. And if it ever gets too thick, you can thin it out with a little bit of chicken stock, which actually is what we do. Once I add the chicken back in, I will add a splash of chicken stock. It takes about 5 minutes or so before your tomatoes really start popping and the sauce starts thickening up. And you know, something I just thought of, and I was telling George as I was cooking, and he's filming tonight, is that this is gonna be great for our kids to reference back later in life when they wanna make their favorite dishes from living at home. Some of the food that I've made on the channel for the Hooked and Rooted at Home episodes are some of their favorites. So they'll have a good reference to go back and watch Mom cook these recipes. But this sauce is just about ready now for us to thin it out a little bit. Because of the balsamic and the honey, it does get pretty thick, and you can see that our onions almost break down to nothing and the tomatoes are all popping. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of chicken stock or chicken broth just to thin it out a tiny bit. And then we are going to add, see, it's basically a tablespoon or two, not much. And then I'm gonna stir it around and nestle my chicken back into this sauce. And then we can layer our mozzarella cheese, because this sauce is gonna continue to bubble and to thicken for the next couple of minutes. I'm gonna take our cutlets and we're gonna nestle it in the sauce. And any juices that come out of the chicken into your dish, definitely add those into the pan as well. It's all really good flavor. Now you wanna just add some of this sauce on top of the chicken. I'm gonna grab a spoon. It'll be a little easier to do that. Just kind of spoon it over. And now we are going to layer our mozzarella cheese. Excuse you, mister, sit. Rocco loves cheese. You can see how nicely this sliced mozzarella works for recipes like this. And I usually just put about 2 pieces per slice of chicken. And I get to save Rocco a little piece. All right, and the last step is just to put in your basil. Of course, fresh basil would taste amazing, but because I don't have any on hand and I didn't pick any up at the grocery store, I'm just going to use dried basil, which will give it just a little bit of extra flavor. And this will melt into the mozzarella. Turn down the heat to low, and we're gonna cover this so that our cheese can melt. Rocco's been a good boy, so I'm gonna give him some of the mozzarella that I've saved for him. Paw, that's a good boy, gentle. Well, dinner is done, and I'm gonna go ahead and plate it up. So my rice just finished, and I'm gonna serve the chicken on this bed of rice, which will sop up all of the sauce and be really delicious. And check out that melty mozzarella cheese. Now there is a finishing touch for this dish that you could also make on the side if you wanted to, and that is a balsamic glaze. And to make a balsamic glaze from scratch, you would just need some honey and some balsamic vinegar. Just grab a little piece here. And of course, you need to add some tomatoes. But you can also buy a balsamic glaze that is already finished. And it looks like this in a bottle. They sell it at Aldi. And it really gives this a nice finishing touch, a little razzle dazzle. And there you go, Caprese chicken. Well, I'm gonna finish serving up dinner, but I would love to know if you try these recipes. I will leave the recipe for the chicken caprese down below, as well as the instructions for the chicken marsala in the description of the video that you can check and report back. Let me know in the comments if you try these and what you and your family thought. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.